reflexive verbs in French indicate where an action reflects back on a subject, and we can recognize them from their infinitives that start with se or is with an apostrophe, such as se laver, to wash oneself, s'appeler, to be called or to call oneself, se réveiller, to wake up. When it comes to using reflexive verbs, each verb is paired with a reflexive pronoun and changes depending on the subject. Me, me. Te, t. Se, s. Nous, vous, ce, s. As you can see, the forms of the words are universal across many pronouns in French, so they're simply borrowed. Also, the pronoun se is the same for the singular and plural third person, and so the subject and verb conjugation will tell the difference. Additionally, me, te, and se become me, t, and s before a vowel or silent osh, so they contract to avoid having two vowel sounds. In short, this is what reflexive pronouns look like by themselves, but to use them in context, we have to follow a specific order. First, we pick the reflexive pronoun that matches the subject. Then, we conjugate the verb accordingly and place the pronoun before the verb. While many tenses exist in French, this video will show examples in the present, and present tense conjugation is something I showed in a previous video. If you use reflexive verbs in other tenses, the same pattern applies. So, we can practice with the verb se réveiller, to wake up. To conjugate this verb in French, we place the subjects, then put the pronouns that will match them, and then conjugate the verb. Je me réveille. Tu te réveilles. Il, elle se réveille. Nous nous réveillons. Vous vous réveillez. Il, elle se réveille. Now, let's conjugate the verb s'appeler, to be called or to call oneself. We place the subject, put the pronouns, and conjugate the verb. Je m'appelle. Tu t'appelles. Il, elle, on s'appelle. Nous nous appelons. Vous vous appelez. Il, elle s'appelle. This verb has a little spelling change, where il doubles in most forms, along with using contractions in some pronouns. Now, let's conjugate the verb se laver, to wash oneself. Je me lave. Tu te laves. Il, elle, on se lave. Nous nous lavons. Vous vous lavez. Il, elle se lave. Overall, this is how reflexive verbs work in French, so they're not that difficult to understand. However, there are three means to use them in French: for daily routines and personal care, emotions and feelings, and reciprocal actions, which are done to each other. For daily routines, reflexive verbs are used a lot to describe things that are done to oneself, which explains why an action reflects back on a subject. Typically, such verbs are se lever, s'habiller, se laver, and se coucher. And we can say something like Je me couche avant 2 heures. I go to bed at 10 p.m. For emotions and feelings, the forms of some verbs may not make sense in English, but it's how they're used in French. S'inquiéter, se fâcher, se détendre. Elle se fâche facilement. She gets angry easily. For reciprocal actions, reflexive verbs can mean each other, like saying Nous nous parlons. We talk to each other. Ils se regardent. They look at each other. As a note, context usually says if a reflexive verb refers to themselves or each other, because the pronoun can mean both, depending on context. Still, it's important to note that not all reflexives literally mean to do to oneself. Some can be idiomatic, like s'appeler, to be named. Je m'appelle Alex. Literally, the sentence means I call myself Alex, but idiomatically it becomes my name is Alex. Other idiomatic verbs can be se souvenir de, se marier, se tendre avec quelqu'un, se rendre compte de, s'occuper de, s'en aller. These verbs are very common in spoken French, but they don't translate word for word. In negative sentences, ne, pas surrounds the reflexive pronoun and verb conjugation. Je ne me lève pas tôt. I don't get up early. At the same time, when using reflexives in questions, especially in inversion, or with est-ce que, a reflexive pronoun stays before the verb. Est-ce que tu t'es réveillé tôt? Did you wake up early? T'habiller-tu vite? Do you get dressed quickly? At last, when using reflexives with body parts, we have to use a definite article for the body part and not a possessive adjective. This is done on purpose because reflexive pronouns already signify who the subject is, so using possessive adjectives would be conceptually unnecessary. Je me lave les mains. I wash my hands. Elle se brosse les cheveux. She brushes her hair. After all of these concepts, we can finish with basic sentences that encompass every possible use of reflexive verbs, whether it's an action done to oneself, an emotion, or something idiomatic. Je me lève. Tu te laves. Il s'habille. Nous nous à maison. Vous vous couchez. Elle se réveille. Overall, this is how reflexive verbs fully work in French.